If you've got questions, kind of just jump in and ask me. I am not on the technical side of things, so I'm not going to be able to answer questions about coding or anything like that. I'm on the marketing side. There's plenty of people in here that can't answer questions on the coding side, I'm sure. But if it's hard to construct a presentation about digital media that's not too elementary for some people or not too advanced for other people. So I'm trying to just kind of hit some middle ground here. If you've got any questions, just kind of jump in as we go along. I've had a couple of beers, so I'm fine. I'm a tennis player too. I played at Mississippi College. Sorry, Joe. Where do you go? Anyway, and I used to think, I could stretch before a match or I could drink beer. And I pulled a hamstring, whatever. I work for Maris Weston Baker. It's a firm that's based here in Jackson. We do a lot of digital media work. Are doing increasingly more digital media work, as you can imagine. First tip: when you're at a group like this, and let's say you got a Twitter handle you want to promote, do your name tag at whatever your Twitter handle is. Y'all can have that one for free. Because you've got no money, you're startups, right? So one of the questions that was on the Meetup board was basically, what do we do? How do you start with no money? And it's kind of heresy for an ad firm to say this, but don't advertise, okay? You're already advertising in the traditional sense that we say advertise. Like Kirk said, you're already probably bootstrapping some things. It's going to pay off a lot better for you to invest in product development and have that excellent, good, bang-up product versus trying to kind of skimp on that just to put some dollars into what we would call paid advertising. That doesn't mean market. Don't market yourself. Marketing and advertising are two kind of different things. Okay, you can think of advertising as paid. Marketing can be paid, or it can just be a lot of work that you put into it. And as ubiquitous as social media is becoming, okay, and there's a lot of platforms out there now. We all know that. There are some major platforms that are going to get the most bang for our buck, depending on what the situation is. And I like to think of social media as it's the new PR, okay? Is there anybody here that's writes for the paper or is a member of the media? Which paper?
I write for the ESPN site that covers New Orleans Pelicans.
Okay, well that's cool. I was going to say that because it's the dream of a PR person and a marketer to be able to end around media, right? Get around that because you got a wild card in there when somebody is covering your story. What social media allows you to do is what's the term, the kind of trending term right now is brand journalism. Okay, it allows you to supply the content for a news story that ends around the media, goes directly to the people that you want to talk to, but you control the content, you control the story. Okay, think of Twitter, think of LinkedIn. Twitter's a great tool for this, but think of those kind of platforms as platforms that allow you to issue your own press releases without having to rely on the interpretation of a third-party editor. All right, that's just it's kind of a change in mindset, but using social media as a PR tool. Not that it's not time-consuming, but it's also not paid media in the traditional sense. It's a way to almost control your message with being able to disseminate it organically. The thing about that is that traditionally, PR it's a one-way street. Okay, you write a press release, you fax it out, you email it out to media outlets, and then, like I said, you're relying on them. Social media is not a one-way street, even used as a PR tool. Now, the mistakes that most companies make, and this runs the gamut from small companies to big companies, is that even though you're using it as a PR tool, it's different. It's still not that one-way, press release, send out, wait for the story to run. It's still social. All right, there's 3 rules. You have to engage. You have to cause a conversation to happen. That's going to make it the most effective. And issue a call to action. I've got several different Twitter properties that I run. One of them is Mississippi Brain Drain Commission. Have y'all ever heard of that? Anybody in here? I'm not doing a very good job. Good job, yes. Okay. A couple others are based on different parts, different segments of the Mississippi economy. There's innovation economy, energy economy, healthcare economy. But what we do with these Twitter feeds is I'm not just pushing out information. I'm not just pushing out, one doctor in a rural community adds $2 million worth of revenue to that community. Okay, that's great to know. Now, I send that out to my 200 Twitter followers or whatever it is. What are they going to do with that? Okay, give them something to converse about, to engage with, to interact with, give them a call to action. Something that I found successful is, and it's not a revolutionary idea, is hosting Twitter forums. Have y'all ever, has anybody here ever participated in a Twitter forum? I know it sounds like, just a little bit cooler than like a Trekkie convention, right? Okay. Whatever. Has anybody ever been to a Trekkie convention? But it is neat. And you pick a topic, you have a guest expert in. I've done one like for our the energy economy thread that I run. I had an expert come in on oil and natural gas to specifically discuss the Tuscaloosa Marine Shell discovery in southwest Mississippi. I've actually got one coming up next week, I think, with the Mississippi Polymer Institute out of Hattiesburg. We're going to do one based on innovation in Mississippi's economy. We've done one on healthcare. And it's neat because you see people getting involved, and it's you see your followers, even if they don't participate. You know when people are following you. When you've got policymakers and state legislators and even business leaders, you know who they are because that's their Twitter handle. And they're following, regardless of whether they're participating or not. So you know you're getting that exposure out and you're able to control your story, that whole idea of brand journalism, using these platforms, not as paid advertising, but the ability to kind of control the content. But you've got to do these things. Like I said, the number one problem that most companies, big and small, have is they don't engage. They don't use social media as a social forum. One question that I get a lot is, there are different social media platforms, okay? They're the big ones. But they're not all equal on equal terms. And it's not anything that you guys don't already know, okay? But I do get the question, well, when do I know how to use what? That's a great question, and some of that is dependent. Yes, sir.
Can you go back to that slide you just left? You were talking about companies and individuals who don't engage, and I'm assuming if they don't engage, they probably don't converse and call to action as well.
Absolutely.
So what do they do that we should be looking at? I'm assuming whatever they do is kind of a baseline that needs to be done, but they're not taking the next steps. So how do we, as we look at these various things, how do we distinguish between that baseline, what most folks are doing, and then how do we move to the next step to do better?
Okay, the best way I can explain that's probably by example. The baseline is just pushing out information. Literally using social media platforms like the AP Wire. Okay, you're just pushing out info. The next kind of step beyond that, and what you want to do is to get that one-on-one engagement. It's kind of like if you call an 800 number, you expect to get lost in a phone tree. You don't expect to get a live person. You get a live person right off. That helps. Same thing. You don't necessarily. You send an email to info at whatever. You don't expect to get a reply back. So if you if you are addressed directly somehow via these social media platforms, that in the consumer's mind says, this is a real product and a real brand that is engaging with me. This, probably one of the best examples I've seen for using this is customer service. Dell actually did a really good job using their Twitter their Twitter thread as a de facto customer service helpline. People would, their computers lock up or whatever, they get really mad, so they jump on and they, do @Dell sucks or whatever. Okay, so somebody over at Dell sees that and actually responds to it and says, @TimMask, what's the problem? And all of a sudden, even though I didn't pick up the phone and call Dell, or I didn't have to go, get lost in a phone tree or wait in some computer repair shop, now that company is engaging me and asking me what's wrong. They're engaging me in a one-on-one conversation, yet everybody else that's watching Dell sees that. So not only are they satisfying one customer, but they're letting everybody else that's looking at their timeline know that they do engage. That's an example of kind of how to do it right. And depending on what your business is and what industry you're in, kind of depends on how you go about that. But that's one kind of example that comes to mind. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So talking about when to use what kind of platforms for what at what time of day. Okay, I think that Twitter is relevant just about, and I may be biased, but Twitter is relevant just about any time. People are, it's quick, it's on your phone, you can do it at work when your boss isn't watching. But it's, and you can set up your hashtags to follow, it's searchable. It's a good format, I think. Just kind of, it's the ubiquitous social media format. LinkedIn, you do LinkedIn at work, okay? Most people are not going to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn in the evenings when they're at home. It's a work thing. Yes?
Can we talk a little bit about Twitter?
Yes.
Just for discussion. How many people here have a Twitter account?
And use it?
And use it? That's probably a better term.
How many people have one and then how many people use it? That's kind of what I'm interested in.
Okay, how many people have one? Let's start with that.
Have.
Okay, so probably everyone but me.
I'll follow you.
I've got like 8. You can have one of mine.
So how many actually use it?
I just followed Tim now.
Use
Okay.
it as in follow people or use it as in type it a lot? I follow people, but I don't actually post a lot myself.
Right.
So
Engagement.
I guess my question, Tim, is the use of Twitter generationally specific?
Nope. In fact,
Being the oldest guy in the room, probably.
Yeah, I think it is. With me.
okay, let me answer that by saying one of the most active groups of Twitter users are politicians. And they're old guys.
Okay.
I think it just one of the largest growing.
Unless they have, well, the young assistant is doing it, but they are, and it's kind of, this is the thing about, and I know I'm biased toward Twitter, I understand, but that's caused Middle Eastern dictators to fall. I mean, that's a powerful, it really is a powerful medium. And if you got everybody from county board of supervisors that had Twitter accounts up to, statewide elected officials, senators, that type thing. There's something to that, and it's not just generational. And also consider that it's not just Tim Mask that's got a Twitter. It's the Associated Press. It's the New York Times. It's the Boston Globe. When you think about the Boston Massacre, all right, when people wanted to find out what was going on with that, they checked their Twitter feeds. So I think that it is a very, it's got its limitations like anything does, but I think it's very powerful. Yes, sir.
So I got a Twitter account, and I've got probably 2 followers.
Okay.
But I'm in media. I've got a nationwide cable network, and I don't get recognition for it. How do I get AP or Washington Post or somebody like that to notice my tweet?
Have you tweeted at them?
No, I haven't. Is that what I do?
That's a place to start. Tweet at them. Tweet at them, and that goes back to what I was talking about engagement. I started one of the, I can't remember which one it was. One of the Twitter forums, the Twitter feeds that I started, I just kind of started tweeting at people and saying, having a Twitter forum with special guests, blah, 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 whoever it was.
Take a question one more step then. I can go on search and find out if so-and-so has a Twitter account?
Yes.
That is the best way, okay.
Yeah, just, you can type in, you can do a Google search for New York Times Twitter, or you can do you can search within Twitter. It's kind of funny sometimes when you search within Twitter, but you can find that fairly easily. Anybody else have a Twitter question?
Well, just I have a comment. Well, so is, I guess like in real world, right, outside of Twitter, do you, if you're like somebody, like if people know you in real life, they know of you, they know what you do, if you just kind of put out there, right, like you put a link to your Twitter profile, and as people find out you have a profile, they probably will find, will try to find you or whatever. So there are like other ways to kind of enhance your profile, so to speak, right? Your reach. Yes, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, so I made the one service one called About.me. So I have a About.me account. So I put my profile there or whatever and stuff. So people I come across people at a conference or at work or just kind of meet people and they see me or whatever. And they may look me up on the internet. It's like, oh, okay, well, I know this guy, or I just met this guy. They seem interesting, right? And so then they find my profile and they follow me there. Other than that, I think kind of over time you just kind of have to craft your feed. The stuff you think is interesting, the stuff you think will be valuable to people, and people will eventually find it.
Yeah.
That's basically the point. It's needs based. It's not generational based. It's needs based. A lot of people listen. That's all they do. Some people have to get in touch with others, and it depends on what kind of need you have. I mean, if the stuff that you're putting out is interesting to the AP, if you make it available, they'll jump on it. But if it's not interesting, then they'll listen. That's about all they'll do.
And let me add to that. When I say tweet at the AP, find the reporter at the AP that's got the Twitter. It's not,
Right.
It's Emily Wagster Pettis's Twitter account, not necessarily AP Mississippi account. Because it's a social medium. So the social part of that is an actual human being, and that's going to increase your followers by doing that.
The over 55 demographic is the fastest growing demographic on Twitter.
Yeah, it's funny. Kids actually, when kids figured out that their parents were getting on Facebook, they started getting off Facebook and started getting on Twitter.
Right.
And now their parents are starting to get on Twitter, so they're on Instagram and
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so over 55, so does
Thanks
Michael
to Twitter,
Harris and
your
I
parents
are
are-
able to still.
What do you mean, Michael Harris? Might be by yourself, too.
what I find, this has nothing to do with this, but that, the Snapchat app, I like that. There's a Snapchat app, and then there was an app built to prevent Snapchat from deleting itself, and then an app built to prevent the app from deleting Snapchat. So that's something over there. Okay, LinkedIn. I found LinkedIn to be really valuable to form groups. Okay, if it's just a general LinkedIn profile, all it's used for is basically to spy on people or figure out what somebody else is lying about their title or whatever. So. But groups, I've found have worked really well on LinkedIn. You can form your own group. You can make them private, by where if you're the group manager, you have to approve somebody's membership. You can make them open, but it's a lot. That's a lot like a Meetup.com group. But LinkedIn is that's a huge social media property. Facebook. Yeah, people do it at work, but people are going to be most engaged with it in the evenings. And the thing about Facebook is, why do people get on Facebook? To look at pictures. All right, that's the primary reason that people get on there. I see somebody will write something that's this long on Facebook, and maybe it's funny. I'm going to sit there and read that, but I'm going to look. I'm going to look at the VIP magazine shot, right? So that's. If you're using Facebook for your to promote your brand, be visual with it. Make sure that you've got some visual elements that you can post. And Pinterest is fantasy football for women. If you got a machining shop, don't even waste your time. All right, if you're selling shoes, go for it. Who knows Quora? Okay, good. If you don't know Quora, Quora is, I don't want to say
Amazing.
Facebook for smart people, but it's kind of Facebook for smart people. Or it's at least a social media platform that everybody else haven't discovered yet. There are a lot of I mean, it's basically Facebook, but there are a lot of high-level, like C-level people there. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that have made it. Some of the people on Quora that have answered questions posed to them have been like Mark Cuban, Jimmy Wales, Larry Summers. I mean, you know, real movers and shakers. So if part of your brand strategy is to position yourself or your company as an expert in a certain area, which I've always liked that strategy, to position yourself as kind of the go-to expert area in whatever your particular space is. Quora is a great place to be answering questions. All right, I think their slogan starts with a Q, ends with an A, and it's legit. It's a great social kind of I don't want to say undiscovered, but under the radar social media gym that gets in front of a lot of really important people. Okay, so the point to all this about using social media as PR. Yes, sir.
Did you ask the smart person that said Quora was amazing to kind of maybe briefly tell us why they think so?
Who said Quora was amazing?
Oh, me. I really love just learning about just whatever topics, a wide array of topics, and they have some of the most fascinating questions and in-depth answers from area experts on anything you can imagine.
Sure.
Absolutely anything extremely technical about how can I get better at web design, or if I know nothing about, I don't know, electrical engineering, what 2 things should I learn in 10 minutes to get halfway to being an expert? And you have people who've devoted their lives to these areas, and CEOs, and famous people who get on and give their real life experiences. That, all the way to, there was a thread that I read earlier this week about people who'd run into and had personal exchanges with Steve Jobs. So you have these really personal stories about that. So just totally a wide variety of topics, and incredibly interesting.
And from the marketing standpoint, what you're using that for is to position yourself as, or your brand, as the expert in that area.
And so before Quora, I think it was there used to be a site called Expert Exchange, and it was like highly technical. It used to be free, and then they started to lock all the content in the paywall. And so it was like two developers who decided to start a company called Stack Exchange. And so the first site was called Stack Overflow, which was for programming questions. And they basically built it up as a platform, and the whole model behind it was to basically get Google juice. So if anybody asks a question about iOS programming, right, it would automatically go to the site. And so they have like this whole range of websites. So actually even one of them is, they have a site called Ask Patents, where the USPTO uses it to kind of help the patent examiners do like research to find prior art. And so one of the founders of the site actually shot down a patent that a patent troll was using to shut down startups. And so the thing is
A
well,
little better,
as
too bright?
um,
good.
That's good.
They're good, okay.
so places like that, so places like Stack Overflow, like Quora, as those become the places whenever you search for, well, how do I do X, or what's the best way to do X, right? So Google takes you to those places. And then if you show up as the person who answered those questions, the response to get voted up or whatever, then that juice kind of passes on to you, right? So you get to be known as the expert or whatever and stuff. It's just, it takes a lot of investment. It's weird. I kind of hung around on a lot of those sites as betas before they came out, and you can kind of, it can be daunting, right? Because then you're like, well, I don't know if I know enough to kind of stack up, to this person or whatever and stuff. But that is the opportunity, right? The opportunity is is that basically, at least indirectly, right, you get to be the person that Google and Bing directs everybody to as an expert on that particular question or topic.
Yeah, I think that the difference with Quora, it sounds like already recognized experts go on there and people observe. what they're doing.
You could be an
With
expert.
Stack Exchange, though, you can be a complete unknown and go on there and become an expert because the community keeps promoting your answers as the best.
Right.
And they've provided, they've got stacked sites on any topic you can really think about now. And so you can go on there as, if you're really somebody who wants to do that, establish yourself with a specific reputation as an expert, and you're nobody, you can do it on a stacked site because that's how it works. If you're the smartest person in the room, you get pushed to the top.
Right.
Let's take that a little bit further. If you are an expert or recognized authority in a field, and you're found on Google that way, you find you all the time just about the subject matter, how would you be able to get that where people on Quora would know that you're a leading authority in that particular field?
Work it backwards a little bit from that. Okay. You use platforms like Quora and like Stack Exchange to start building your content, because what Google does, you probably know a lot more about this than I do, but a lot of Google search rankings are dependent on how authoritative the site that they're taking you to is. So, you know, if you've got a site like Yahoo Answers or something, it's not going to rank as authoritatively. I mean, there's lots of other criteria, but that's not going to rank as authoritatively as a lot of these other sites. So you use, I mean, you know, if you write a Wikipedia article, you got to be careful about how you write that because it can't be commercialized because you'll get kicked off. But if you want to write a Wikipedia article about, you know, some kind of media trends or something, start doing things like that and building your content in other areas so that Google finds it. You want to add anything to that? You know a lot more about that.
Well, no, that's good. I mean, it's probably about as much as I know. I'm a technical person, know very little about marketing and sometimes SEO, that type of thing kind of seems like, you know, the bane of a lot of people's existence. But yeah, I mean, it's basic, you know, like kind of the whole premise, right, is something that's valuable based on how people link to it. So if you get...
Yeah, it's the value.
Right.
There's a need and there's an interest. Most people have an interest. Not that many people have a need. If you can write the thing that you're writing on a site like Quora and people need that information, then your ranking is going to go way up quick. If it's just interesting, like with Robin, she stumbles across things that are interesting, okay, well, that's fine. But you really build mass by providing something that's needed, more so than interest.
Okay, that just made me think of something. You also want this stuff, you want to migrate people from your different parts of your content, and that's going to really help your Google ranking.
Right.
If you've got a blog, you write a blog article, tweet your blog article out, link to your Quora article in your blog article, so that you've got, you know, circular stuff going on there, or your LinkedIn, you know, promote your LinkedIn group via your blog article, via Quora, via your Twitter, all that. So that's just going to increase. That's going to increase traffic and likely increase your authoritative rank.
What do you know about Google Plus? From what I've been told, the more Google Plus you do, the more it raises your Google Analytics and all of that great stuff, and helps with SEO as well. Is that true?
I believe that just knowing how Google is. Okay. Also, even though they say buying Google ads doesn't help your SEO, whatever. All right, it does. Probably, yeah. I mean, it's one of those kind of things that it's not a super high traffic platform yet. It may be, it may not be. I don't know. It's very male oriented for whatever reason. There's no reason that it is, but just the analytics shows it's all used a lot more by males. Techie folks. It's one of those kind of things that there's no reason to not do it. I don't know that I would invest a ton of time into it.
Well, the new interface is very user friendly now, so I guess.
I haven't seen the new interface yet, but it's got to be better.
It's more friendly than it was before, which is why I'm kind of migrating towards more
Okay.
the company that I work for.
Well, that will be interesting. That'll be interesting to see. There's no reason to not do it. I guess it's not the king yet. I don't know that it will be the king, but you know, it's Google, so it could be. I can't remember what I was going to do here, but I wanted to work Miley Cyrus.
It's okay. We don't have to try that.
Y'all know who this guy is?
Yeah, I want to know that story. I've seen it before, but I forgot.
Nobody else knows who this guy is?
I don't know who he is, I've seen it. I've seen the
Okay.
video.
If y'all don't, we'll finish strong here. Point here being, beware of what you're doing, I guess. Things with social media, even though we talk about brand journalism, there still is that element of stuff getting out of control. Everybody's got a camera on their phone. Especially if you put on your name tag at Tim Matt. Well, he was giving a presentation, drank 3 beers. Only had 2. So just kind of be aware of things like that. That's kind of my soapbox on that. Okay, talking about things you can do with no money or very little. Used to be companies would have to spend gazoodles of money on research if they wanted good research. Okay, qualitative focus groups, quantitative phone surveys, and that stuff is expensive. All right, the internet, the analytics that we can get back from advertising campaigns and just from straight up web analytics are killing that. And they're actually much more reliable because you don't have to, when you look at your analytics, if you're running a paid campaign and you look at your feedback on that, or you're running a, you're looking at your analytics on your website and maybe you've got, just straight up Google Analytics or an advanced analytics platform, you're not relying on people to tell you and be truthful about what they're doing. You're looking at what they're doing. So analytics on the internet is one of the best de facto research tools that you can use. It's one of the most powerful things, and it can be free or it can be paid a little, but it's nothing like what you had to do 30 years ago in focus groups. It is a great tool. Why is there a picture of Bob Marley up there? That's Bob Marley, right? No, I'm not Hill. Okay, so a few years ago, I had a client that sold, they had an acne medication that they sold. It was mainly for teenagers, obviously. And we ran this social media based, it was paid advertising, but it was on social media sites. Okay, so because we could get profile data, it was even more in depth than what you could get off of regular analytics. We got some great research. And I got really excited about one of the coolest things I ever learned from running an ad campaign. I went back to the client and I said, analytics show that consumers of your product have a 400% higher propensity than the average person to like reggae music. And they were like, okay. What the hell do I do with that? But my point to them was, the things that you can learn online can affect what you do offline. Sponsor a reggae concert. Think about how, if you already know that these people from your analytics are more likely to engage with and use your product, take that offline. Sponsor an interview with Bob Marley or whoever a contemporary reggae star is. Do things like that. And that was one of the weirdest examples I'd ever had, and I always tell that story. Let's say you've got a little bit of money. Those are all things with basically no money. Okay, you've got a little bit of money. What can you do? One of the best pieces of content that you can produce at relatively low budgets is what I call an explainer video. Okay, Jackson, original-based company Bombard, does this awesome. Okay, they had their whiteboard series that they did. I mean, they built an ad campaign on that. It can be, kind of dry and explanatory like that, or to explain what you do, it can be something like this. Hi, y'all seen this guy?
Founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are Great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. Your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Papa! Stop paying for shaved tank you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship it right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. Stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
Okay, so that video cost about $9,000 to make, okay? In an age where you look at a Ford commercial and it's probably $300,000, okay, for something that you can't track, all right? That was the president of Dollar Shave Club, yes.
Who locally can produce the video?
Maris Weston Baker Advertising.
Sorry.
It's called unabashed self-promotion.
Tell me y'all did that ad.
Thank you.
She's a plant.
If they did that ad, he would not be here. He'd be behind.
It was about $9,000 to make that. That's the actual president of the company. Alejandra actually works there. I don't know who was in the bear costume, but I'm assuming he wasn't paid. You know, it wasn't Charlie Sheen. So,
Wait a minute, since you're in the business watching that thing now, you can get absorbed in it. You can love this commercial. He was smart enough at the end, though, to make damn sure you saw his name in sight.
Right.
Now think of how many good, real expensive ads you see in that ad they get through. What the hell were they advertising?
exactly. It's like, I remember that with the talking baby. What was that?
Yeah.
But the thing about, a 30-second ad on TV is there, it's gone. That is funny enough that I'm going to forward that, to my buddies, okay? And it would not make sense to take that ad probably and spend, $500,000 on a media buy or $2 million on a media buy, because it doesn't hit a wide enough audience with that kind of humor. But what it does, if you're looking at being viral or even doing some kind of targeted online placement that I'll talk about in a minute, that kind of ad for relatively little bit of money to produce, you can really micro-target exactly who that can go to a guy like me that finds that super hilarious, okay? And I'm going to forward it to my buddies, so there's a multiplier effect. So that kind of, I call it explainer, it's really content, video-based stuff that you can produce for relatively low budgets, host free or for very little money, and really, really go viral. That's, if you've got just a little bit of money, that's the kind of thing that you don't necessarily have to waste your dollars on huge media buys to be effective. Okay, talking about it from the advertising standpoint, and y'all probably know everything that I'm about to talk about, so I'm going to kind of rush through it. If you got questions, just ask. There's 3 kind of baseline ways that you can target your online advertising. Okay, the first is geo-targeting. Okay, most online placement services can do that just about down to a zip code level. Okay, so my firm does a lot of work for the state of Mississippi. So there's no need for us to be running something that somebody in Arkansas is going to see. So you can geo-fence or geo-target your advertising. Contextual just means that, it's what it means. Your ads appear in context. It's like if you're Delta Airlines, you don't want your ad to appear next to a New York Times story about an airplane crash. Okay? So you can set up some rules contextually on how your ads are placed. But if you're Delta Airlines and some magazine or some online website writes a hit piece about Southwest, you may want your ads to appear there. And you may want to control, if Southwest, run this ad, Delta lower cost flights in Southwest. I mean, you can do that so that whatever the context is determines when the ad is served and what the content of that ad is. And behavioral just means I visit ESPN.com all the time, so I'm going to get sign up for fantasy football ads. That's just because look, everybody knows everything that we do, right? Online, it's terrible for civil libertarians, but it's great for marketers. Okay, because based on somebody's online behavior, where they go, what they do, how often they do what they do, you can really target that very close. And the line I use is no wasted impressions. Okay, no impression left behind. You can't ever be 100% sure that the person that you're serving your ad to is 100% qualified, but with digital media avenues, you can be pretty damn sure now that you're not wasting those impressions. This was I actually pulled this slide from a presentation I given to a client. This particular client was involved. They sold asphalt. Okay, see, we do sexy stuff in advertising, like sell asphalt. So they had a very diverse group of people that they needed to talk to. They needed to talk to engineers at companies that were specifically concerned about cost overruns, right? But they also were targeting boards of supervisors and state DOTs and that type of thing that were concerned about how long the stuff is going to last. All right. So what you can do through your digital media platforms is to say, well, let's just create 6 ads, 12 ads, whatever. I can fit 6 on that slide, so only 6. And maybe maybe ad 5 works better for this guy that's a civil engineer, but maybe ad 3 is getting a better conversion rate for state DOTs. So it's that automatic optimization that happens, and most good digital ad platforms are going to provide that. You provide whatever your metrics are, whatever you consider a conversion. It can be as simple as a click, or it can be as targeted as calling a specialized phone number. Okay, you provide the metrics, and then your ad platform, you create the messages, and your ad platform optimizes whatever messages are working best for whatever audience. Okay, and this kind of thing, your digital media placement, it's not, I say, not that expensive. This is again what to do if you've got a little bit of money. It's worth it. I mean, you're talking, maybe you spend $10,000 over the course of 3 months or something, which in the world of advertising, that's not that much. We're not that expensive, by the way. So when we do your video. What to do if you've got a lot of money? Okay, you're starting to get some things rolling in. Okay, and you're making some bank. And I don't want to say start thinking about this at this point, but now you can start investing some dollars into creating a user-defined experience. And going back to one of my original points, all that means is the user is telling you what they want to see, so you can provide it to them. You can do this kind of as an add-on to your geo-behavioral or contextually targeted advertising. You can do retargeting campaigns. There's search retargeting, which is it's again one of those things that's kind of scary but pretty cool. Whereas if I search for let's say I search for private colleges in Mississippi, okay, and maybe I don't click on millsaps.edu, but because everybody knows everything we do, and with this technology, it knows that you have searched for that. Even if you search for that, and then later that day you end up on Wall Street Journal or New York Times or Yahoo Finance or whatever, you see an ad from Millsaps College there. It's qualified you as being interested in. Okay, that's search retargeting. So it's driving you back to that site. Site retargeting is kind of the same thing. You visited a certain part of the Millsaps. Maybe you visited the MBA program at Millsaps. Okay, so it's qualified you as interested in that, even though it's a sub-page or you spent some time in that section. All of a sudden, you start seeing ads for Millsap's MBA program. So it's driving you back, not necessarily to that site, but to another portion of that site, maybe to call somebody or to email somebody, fill out a form about specific information for that program. My example of that is, I got an 8-year-old a few years ago. He wanted a pair of Skechers. Okay, I didn't know where to buy Skechers in town because I'm not sure about it. So I go to Skechers.com, find the closest store. For 6 months, all I saw was Skechers ads. I mean, they were. It's like, oh, it was like, I got the shoe, I got it. But, they were. Oh, Skechers ads for kids. Also, you're able to target it down that far. I mean, they were, that's a good example of somebody using it effectively. One of the coolest things, I think, that I've seen out there in a long time is this technology called, you see it called smart content, you see it called intelligent responsive content. What this is a back-end protocol. It does not affect the design of your site, it doesn't affect the way your site's built. It's literally just back-end, I guess code, I don't know what it is. It's a technology that sits on the back of your site, and based on a series of then statements, okay, it determines what content is served to your site. And what that does is you don't have to have different landing pages, you don't have to have the, promote the slash, go to whatever. You've got one site, one page, which is better for your SEO, for one thing. But if I get to your site through a search for Millsap's MBA program, I go to millsaps.edu, but it's information about the MBA program. Okay, and it's almost unlimited what the if-thens can be. If I get to your site from a certain search at a certain time of day and I'm in a certain state or wherever, I see this information. A great example of this is the San Antonio Convention Visitors Bureau. Did some research and they found out that there were a lot of people that were coming to the city, but they weren't staying over. Okay, they weren't staying the night, and they were kind of going to the same old tourist locations that they had seen before. So they implemented, the Bureau implemented this technology that said if a person from this area, these areas, within driving distance, relatively of San Antonio, comes to our site, serve them this content of stuff that they've probably never seen before, and by the way, put a coupon on there for 20% off a hotel stay. All right, within 6 months, they boosted their revenue from tourism tax by like 30%. Okay, that's significant. That stuff is cool, and I say do it when you've got a lot of money. It's also, it's not that super expensive. It's usually priced, depending on how you do it, as per monthly charge, but it's definitely something, once you've got some revenue rolling in, to invest in. I got a question about, on the Meetup site, about family and friends. Somebody here that asked me that question about, we've got family and friends willing to help us create content. Was that you? Okay, be careful. Not to say you can't utilize somebody like that. That guy is your buddy, but he didn't know your brand. All I'll say about that is use them wisely, give them the information that they can disseminate. Don't let them create content. Ultimately, that's just marketing. That's not a digital media thing. That's just a marketing thing. They may think that Dollar Shave Club is awesome, and they send it out to your target audience, but your target audience is 80-year-old women. Okay, that's an extreme example, but just make sure that if you're using that it's clearly defined, and probably don't expect too much either. I have a lot harder time doing something when I'm not being paid for it than if I am being paid for it for some weird reason. Not to say that they can't be used and can't be effective. I just it's kind of like managing expectations type thing. That's how you can get in touch with me. And this is that video.
We chose Georgia Tech because we want to do the impossible. And this school is equipped with the resources and faculty to help us do just that. And so, In the words of Sir Isaac Newton, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Georgia Tech is proud of its many traditions, but the one I find most exciting is our tradition of excellence. Our mission as students is not to follow in the footsteps of the astronauts, Nobel Prize laureates, and presidents who graduated before us, but to exceed their footsteps, crush the shoulders of the giants upon whom we stand. We here are all such innovative people, so I am telling you, if you want to change the world, you're at Georgia Tech. You can do that. If you want to build the Iron Man suit, you're at Georgia Tech. You can do that. If you want to play theme music during your convocation speech like a badass, we can do that. I am doing
Some things are just funny. Thank y'all.
Thank you.